Thank you, everybody, for joining another episode of Banking on Experience. I'm your host, James Gilbert. We're really excited to have this guest on, but today we're going to be talking about a topic that is very unique. I've actually never heard anybody talk about this. So I'm super excited because we're going to be talking about why your employee metrics need to be tied to CX and MX metrics. So your performance reviews that you do, quarterly, yearly, we're going to talk to you about why you should tie it to the customer experience. But before I do that, if you haven't subscribed to our podcast, please do so. Give us a rating. We'd love to hear from you. Love to get the feedback. Here we go. Welcome to the episode, everybody. Stacy Sherman is joining us. Stacy, give us a little intro on who you are, and let's start there.
Yes, so I am living, breathing customer experience, employee experience, 24/7 minus sleep hours. And I'm also a mom, so count that too. But yeah, I'm leading customer experience, employee engagement at Schindler Elevator Corporation by day. And I'm the founder of Doing CX Right by night. And so my worlds come together around this passionate topic.
Love it. I'm going to ask you a random question. Holidays are coming up. Tell the audience about a fun holiday tradition that you do with your family.
Oh, well, this year's definitely different and weird, and all those adjectives. So we're gonna have to get very creative this year. But typically, it's actually more what I would call um, less planned. Like the whole year is so planned and rigid and scheduled. And so it's really the joy is going to be really coming together and really doing what we really feel like. I'm hoping that I can bring my kids to who are older college kids. I can bring their youth back and bring out some board games. That's what I have in mind.
Love it. When I was younger, I started a local charity that was local to us, where we provided Christmas to families that couldn't do it. And what's interesting is how you see these bigger organizations now, like the Angel Trees and stuff, that are at the Walmarts and all that kind of stuff. And every year we do a tradition where we go and pick a bunch of names off of those, and we take our kids and try to get them to think less about themselves and more about everyone else around them. But I want to hit on something that's going to kind of tie into the topic that we're going to be talking about today, and tell the audience what today is.
Yes. So today is International Day of People with Disabilities. And it's a real day. It's you can Google it. I didn't make it up. And what's interesting is a lot of people didn't know about the day. And I feel so fortunate that I've been able to do two things to help drive awareness, conversations, focus on empathy, compassion, and and people doing things differently. And so personally, through Doing CX Right, I interviewed a woman, Stacy Hirschberg, who's had 84, I think is the right number, 84, 82, 84 surgeries. And what life has been like for her. I did a video that you can find on my Doing CX Right about what life is like for her as a customer, as an employee, and as a patient, and all the lessons learned that people, as leaders, as colleagues, as doctors, what you can do to make experiences better for people with disabilities. And then also in my day job with Schindler, I'm hosting a talk, CX talk with my team. And so the theme of this talk was about inclusion and diversity with some of the leaders of our organization. And it's really powerful what we've been able to do internal to the company, global company, that we're driving more of that conversation as well, some of it uncomfortable conversation, and really supporting. And at the end of the day, the more that employees feel valued and cared for by everyone, by every leader, by every peer, the more they're going to deliver to customers, even when their boss isn't looking.
I love it. When I was a young professional, I was going through some stuff that a lot of people don't know about because I keep it pretty close to my chest, but I went blind and I had corneal transplants and did the first 3 or 4 years of my college completely blind. And not even people that went to high school with me know about that story because we kept it so close. And I always, when I was younger, I was ashamed that I had these issues. And as I've now grown in my career, it's made me realize how lucky we are to have what we have. And uh, I that this day I don't even think I knew about it. And I had the opportunity when I was younger to um, my mom helped take care of me when I was up at college, and I had a dog that I walked with that walked with me, and there was a lot of things that the state offered me. They're like, look, you need a handicap sticker for when you're getting around, and I just was so prideful that I refused to take it. And still to this day, I think about those times in my life because it was tough. Uh, yeah, obviously because I was younger, like the world is a mean place for those who do struggle with disabilities, whether that's mental or physical. And I mean, I had people at college that pushed me down in the snow and stepped on my face because I couldn't see. And it's a mean place out there. And I love the fact that we're bringing a little bit of awareness to this because I do think that people um, just need to be kinder, period.
I have to harp around something you just said, which is about feeling ashamed. And when you listen to the video with Stacy, she talks about how she felt like she had to mask what she had, and especially in high school, how it would affect making friends and how it would affect everything. And then even as an adult today, I mean, she'll go to the supermarket. It is very, very visible that she has an arm cast and crutches, and the people that are, doing the groceries, they're not even looking up and looking at her, and they're not even like helping or being accommodating. I mean, it's just mind boggling. Never mind the shame or the feeling of masking. It really touched my heart. God, it's so backwards.
It really is, and there's so many people that there's a lot of people too that are struggling with mental illness, especially during the pandemic, and that's not any different. That really inhibits our ability to be the best person that we are, and I think that so many people are even ashamed of that. And we have to realize that you're not alone there. So if you have those struggles, like talk to people about it. You'd be surprised how many people have similar stories that they can share as well, and you kind of bounce off. I know it's not directly related to the topic that we were going to talk about, but it is because employee experience and making sure your employee's performance is tied to those things. As you mentioned, if that grocery store that met your friend, if they had a focus on customer experience and member experience, imagine the different type of atmosphere that she might have occurred, right? Um,
And they would have actually, she said that she's actually asked, is there a line she can stand on that would be shorter? Or, it's really hard to hold things, and you literally have half your body you can't really use, and accommodate, be accommodating. And they said no. And so you're right. That definitely affects, yes, customer experience metrics. I mean, they're numbers so we can gauge how well we're doing. But if your employees don't do what the right thing for the customer because we're human, you've got the wrong people.
Completely agree. So, reiterate the topic. Employee performance should be tied to customer experience or CX/MX metrics. How do organizations get leaders on board on this? Because we all know, like, CX 9 times out of 10 has to start with leadership or a champion that can get leadership involved. So, how can they get people on board with this?
So I'll use today as a great example. The video that I was sharing about her name Stacy. The video that I had put on my blog, it was on social media, and one of the executives at where I work during the day, my main job, saw that post, that article, the video. He ended up taking that video and he shared it internal to the company and said, our own Stacy Sherman created this story. Please watch it and let me know, for him to his team, if this applies to anyone, if you are suffering anything, if I can do anything to help you, let's have the conversations. We're family. And he didn't have to do that, but he took the proactive approach to bring the conversation out. And that's what customer experience and employee experience, that's diversity, inclusion, all of that. It's all that. It's about humanizing business. And when people feel valued and cared for, it fuels everything.
Completely agree. And I think you hit on it, and that's be proactive. Don't be reactive. Be proactive. Like, do something, do it now. Don't wait, right? And it's not always this huge gesture. It could be as simple as resharing and simply saying to the rest of the organization, "Hey, is anyone else struggling with this? And I'd love to talk to you about it." It's amazing to me how many leaders are in their roles and never ask those type of questions. It literally
How about
blows
just
my mind.
how about just how are you? Yeah, how about just how are you today?
Or,
I mean,
or that. I mean, it blows my mind. And I'm even sometimes guilty of this. I'll get in a team meeting and I just forget to ask, like, how's everybody doing today, right? Um, but that being said, it's still in the back of my mind. But I do ask all the time in one-on-ones, and when we talk, I go throughout the entire organization and ask people how everyone's doing, what are they struggling with, because I also have to develop culture here within the company that I'm at. So I think that leaders also have to have a stake. They have to have, like, ownership of that, and they have to realize that culture is not built by one person or just the leaders. Everyone's accountable for it, which means that your employees need to hold you accountable for when you screw up. And I don't think that happens enough because employees are so scared to tell their leader, "Hey, in that team meeting we had the other day, maybe start off by asking how we're doing." You know, like, a lot of employees will not feel comfortable doing that. And that's, again, the leadership's job and responsibility is to break that down so that it is an okay environment to have a conversation like that.
so I want to add on to that, which is very appropriate for this time period, and that is safety. Um, Obviously, where I work, an elevator corporation, safety is the core of everything we do, everything. But what's also interesting now is mental safety. And that's what you're talking about, that it's mentally safe to be open, to speak authentically without worrying that you'll lose your job. So that's where employee engagement happens. It's not a, 1 + 1 = 2 formula. It's all of this that formulates how a company operates and how they are. Like I said, when the boss isn't looking, how they will be and that they'll do the right thing for their colleagues, for the customer, and it will be noticed and it'll be remembered.
I completely agree. We've been talking a little bit about the employee experience and making sure that it can actually translate. But let's talk about those metrics. I think it's interesting that there is a lot of different ways you can measure the customer experience and a lot of different ways that people do it. It's not just NPS or CSAT, but there's a lot of different ways that you can measure it. And I find this topic to be super fascinating because I've never heard anybody say, hey, your performance review this quarter is based on if we get maybe an NPS score of X or a CSAT score of X, or maybe it's specific to the micro journey of what they're working. So we'll use that grocery store example. Okay. Baggers and cashiers are a unique micro journey. So if they're at the grocery store, and they this isn't hard. Like, you don't have to make this super complicated. It could be as simple as the employee making sure that they serve that customer, but then also asking just anecdotally, was I able to help you today? Was I able to do what you needed today? And if the answer is overwhelmingly yes, with every customer that goes through there, you tally that up at the end of the day, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be super complicated. I think that people overcomplicate it. They think, oh, I got to have this like data metric and I've got to build this data flow and make sure that it ties into reporting. And I don't think it needs to be necessarily even that complex. So talk to us a little bit about when you thought of this topic, what did you have in mind when you were thinking about the CX and MX metrics?
Yes. So I was thinking about the fact that I had been in a job where I was the only one with the CX metrics tied to my performance and objective, and not where I am now in the past. And it was really hard for me to get people's attention. When I would listen to the voice of customer, I would bring those insights to the product teams, to the e-commerce teams where there's pain points in the journey that they could fix. And it was not their priority. Yet I'm like screaming like it has to be. And then the next year, I was able to help get the leadership to champion the fact that it can't just be my metric. It has to be every job title. And then I saw the difference. I saw that when I brought the insights and action plans and best practices to implement with those teams, they took it seriously. And it shouldn't be that it becomes a score tied to your objectives like revenue, that's what's going to make you care. Shouldn't be that way. Or I don't like the word should, but not a good idea. Not ideal. Yet that's what the reality was. So compare year 1 to 2, the scores of customer metrics were completely different when everybody had a stake in it, not just me or my team.
Yeah, I'm going to break this down from a marketing perspective really quick because that's like, that's my mind frame. So, I think about top of funnel. Marketing's traditionally responsible for that. So they're traditionally responsible for bringing awareness to a brand and then driving it through into conversion. And then from there, conversion into opportunity and then eventually into a customer. So a good example of how you could start doing this is if you take top of funnel and let's say marketing on the customer experience is measured off of after that person becomes a customer, did our expectations and our messaging meet their needs to the product that they got? Okay. So then marketing is held accountable to make sure that that is on point, which means guess what they're going to want to do? In their strategy, they're going to want to have sounding boards with customers, making sure that they're involving the customers, which guess what? Makes better marketing. It makes the experience better. And then you have the sales funnel. And we all know that traditionally, no offense to anyone who is in sales, but Traditionally, sales does not think about the customer experience at all. Like, it's just the reality. I love y'all, but you need to be thinking about it more. People are people, and I think we're seeing this. We've seen it in the pandemic, right? Where more people need the experience to matter to them, a more personal touch. So, again, the same type of metric, but different for sales is while I was in the sales cycle, did I meet your needs? Did I serve you as a person or as a sale? Right? And those are just some small areas without like building a full structure of metrics behind it. Those are some small areas that you can help with. And then obviously after somebody becomes a customer success and all the other areas, product, that's how they can be measured off of the same thing. And that's it. Like, are you happy with the service that we're providing? Are you happy with the product that we're giving you? Is it producing what we promised? Because there's so often that brands and companies make a promise and they can't deliver on it.
Would you say, because this is a controversial question, I know my opinion, would you say that CX is the new marketing?
Um, I would say that the future of most CMOs and marketers in the future will have to own the majority of the customer experience. Here's why I believe that. Okay. I don't think it is yet because I just don't think that there's enough marketers that are thinking this way. But the roadmap is there. We have more data, and I've talked so much about this, but we have more data at our fingertips as marketers than anyone. And we can help serve customer success internally, product internally, our own organization, marketing, sales. We can help serve all functions of the business better than any other function. So because of that, the employee experience is directly tied to the customer experience. And therefore, I think we're going to see in the future where marketers are going to strictly own part of that. And you're seeing that in some organizations where they're actually going to, like they have like what HubSpot calls as a flywheel. It's the full customer life cycle. After sales, post sales, into the customer, back into marketing, and so on. And I think you're going to continue to see that more and more. And senior level marketing executives, if they're not thinking that way, they will be replaced.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my opinion. What's your opinion?
Um, I've worked in different organizations, very different structures, and I'm thinking, reflecting on what I think works the best. This could be a whole conversation in itself, so I'll just speed up an answer, and that is, regardless of what your structure is, there has to be incredible, intentional partnerships. So, voice of employee. Some people have argued, well, that's HR. And I said, well, but I'm also doing it because I need the employee feedback to help inform and marry it with the customer feedback. So it's like at the end of the day, let's break down the walls and silos and titles and let's just work together, because that's where we fail. If we start to it live in boxes, instead it's like bring the right people to the table together and let's just do what's right for the customer. And that means getting the employee feedback, the customer feedback to make those decisions. But again, time and time again, everybody in a company is tied to is focused on metrics, and if that's the way that it moves people, then they have to have a CX score tied to their performance, just like their traditional metrics. That's just the way companies operate, and can't change that.
Love it. What is one thing that you think organizations can do today to try it out?
What can organizations do to what?
What do you think is one thing that people can do today to try this out, to start getting it and the ball moving?
I would say do the basics. So if you want to start with NPS, which is the most common, but not the only metric for sure, um, institute your internal NPS and your external NPS. Ask those questions at the right moments of truth, but use both the internal. So, for example, if you're a sales organization or a retail organization, and you've got, in my old role was Verizon as retail stores, or you have a sales organization where I am now, without stores. Either way, make sure you're measuring at that individual level. And secondly, make sure that you look at the data where the internal employee satisfaction and likelihood to recommend the company, all those data points, look at that, because I have a feeling, or not feeling, I've seen that when the local area, the local branch, the local store, when they have good scores, that they feel like they're valued, they understand the company goals, they feel part of it, they feel empowered. The customer metrics are very linked
Mm-hmm.
versus the opposite.
You're 100% right. Employee experience is totally tied to the CX experience. And we saw that when I was at Cloud Cherry. We sold the customer experience product. And every single time we went in, if they didn't have a good culture to talk to manage employee experience, they were 2-3 years away from actually being able to do real customer experience. And because it's got to be deeper than just one function owning it. To your point, has to be cross-functional. Everyone has to have a stake in it. Everyone has to have ownership in it. And you can't really do that unless you build really good employee experience. That's the internal part. So go ahead. You had something you want to say.
I was just going to add, I mean, part of my job that's not in the job description, but I really believe in it. I'm going around every day to everybody and saying, you have a CX job and you don't even realize it. Everyone. You're in billing, you're in finance. Guess what? Maybe you don't interact. Your particular job doesn't interact with the customer, but guess what? Bill and pay is part of the customer journey. And if that is difficult, if that's a high level of effort to pay a bill, I don't care that it was a good buying experience and getting the product and setting it up. Doesn't matter. If any point in the journey goes wrong, they'll leave. They'll tell others. So that's my point. Literally go around and tell everybody you work with that they own the customer experience and how they matter.
I really like that. Stacy, we're coming at time. If people want to reach you, what's the best way they can do that?
Yes, come to my website. Tons of resources, articles, podcasts, a book. So it's doingcxright.com. And my contact information is there too. So thank you.
Appreciate it, Stacy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.